Hello, welcome to the Superintendent Spotlight. This is episode number 12, and today we're going to focus on the elementary mathematics curriculum. So I have three guests this morning. First, to my immediate left is David Jewett, and David is our Director of Mathematics K-12 in the Hingham Public Schools. And then we have our two elementary math specialists, Julie Chandler, who's been here since, or for how many years?
I've been here for 11 years.
For 11 years, and you represent two of our schools.
South Elementary and East Elementary.
Okay, and then Blake Doyle, who has been here.
I've been here for 10 years, and I'm at Foster and Plymouth River schools.
Great, thank you. You know, recently there's been an awful lot in the popular press about topics like Common Core and the MCAS park debate and all things related to those things, and a lot of misinformation out there. But in the end, there's no question that some of those things do impact what we do, and I'm interested in hearing from you, Dave, on a broader level, not just elementary, the extent to which things like readiness for park or MCAS and the math standards and Common Core discussions impact what we do in math in the Hingham Public Schools.
Certainly, it's a big question, but I guess I would think the first focus really is the curriculum frameworks. And that has had unquestionably the biggest impact on what we've done. The new frameworks, which came in 2011, really changed where we taught material, not necessarily what we taught, but where we taught it. It shifted most of the courses about a half a year down all the way into 6th grade. So we spent probably the last 4 or 5 years really adjusting and shifting our curriculum so that we're teaching the right material at the right spots. But there's a second part of those frameworks as well that are really going to be sort of the push for our next 3 to 4 years within the department. And it's habits of mind. And when we talk about habits of mind, there's certain things that students have to do, attending to precision. There's pieces that are modeling with mathematics. And these are things that are part of the frameworks, and it's really about how we teach students and the questions we ask students. And so, the first and foremost, we push to get the curriculum in the right spaces, but now we have to sort of make an adjustment in terms of how we're teaching. And that's going to take us a few years, because I think traditionally we've always been a district where you say, we do an excellent job because we do a great job on standardized testing, and our students do very, very well. And I agree with that. However, I do think that we can ask our students to problem solve better. We can ask our students to think about mathematics in a different way. And it's just going to take some time and some training with our teachers. As far as MCAS and Park are concerned, we've had such terrific results with MCAS that we've kind of stayed the course with MCAS, riding out MCAS while other districts have switched over to Park already. Because we're not really sure what was going to become of the Park test, and we're still not entirely sure whether MCAS will be the graduating determinant or Park will be. And so our mode has been to be patient, because MCAS has worked well for us. It provides us a lot of data district-wide that we can use to make good judgments. And so I think to stick with MCAS for now has been helpful. We'll see where we end up in the
Within
coming
the next
months.
month, hopefully, we'll know something, at
We'll
least
know.
about what will happen in this spring.
And we've piloted, we've piloted some park tests,
Right.
and we have an idea of what's coming. And the idea is that those questions, the main difference between the MCAS and the park testing that we're seeing is not as much content, but really the scaffolding of the questions. And so the park questions, you may be asked how much sand goes into a sandbox that's shaped like a triangle. That would be the question on a park test. And you have to know that you have to find the volume of the box, and they may ask you the cost of it as well. And you have to figure out that you're going to have to find the volume, figure out how much sand goes in there, multiply it by the cost. Whereas on the MCAS, they may say, find the area first. Given the height, what is the volume? And they really lay out that procedure for you. So I think there's a much bigger emphasis with Park in terms of problem solving and understanding from a student's perspective. They have to think about what they need before they can start the questions.
Right, and I think the other issue for us as educators is, as we go in that direction, whether it's with Park or a successor to the MCAS, we will get a lot of data but because they're not testing simply specific skills, we may not know what it means in terms of diagnosing issues and concerns. So
I agree
great.
entirely, and we'll definitely have a couple years of a bubble there where we're trying to figure out what our new data
Right.
means and how we go forward with it, for sure.
So moving to the elementary level,
Absolutely.
we've been using the Everyday Math program for a number of years now, and we are just recently, since September, engaged in an upgrading or updating of that program. And so talk to us about Everyday Math and the reasons for changing to this next edition at this point.
Well, mostly, there were a couple things happening. One, we had recognized as a district that we had some, I want to say, concerns with the Everyday Math program, especially when it was time to realign it to the new Massachusetts frameworks. And so Blake and Julie spent a lot of time really coordinating the program, but a teacher could be in section 8.1 one day, and then back to 2.3 the next day, and then back to 8.2 to try and keep some consistency in how the material is being covered. So purely from an ease standpoint, switching over to the new Everyday Math program, first and foremost, was a much better solution because teachers were able to teach straight through the calendar. But they also have added some new pieces to the program that have really addressed some of the concerns that I think we had with the program in terms of the spiraling aspect and being able to see how the material will continue to spiral through the entire program. That was hard for teachers to see before, and they just had to go on faith that it was going to happen. And then there's definitely a new technology piece as well that I think is definitely a major component and is going to help us sort of extend that education for the students. And I think the last piece that's probably very big, and again, Blake and Julie can talk more about this, but there's an open response component now that's really, it's buried into the curriculum, and it's really something that's a focus for the teachers and the students. And I think that's by the fact that it's being sort of based, there's an assessment for it, and the fact that the teachers have to address it constantly each chapter, it puts a little bit more emphasis on, again, articulating ideas and students being able to really explain how they know the math, not just get a right answer, which is very important, especially at the young age.
Right. Okay. So, Julie and Blake, we're very fortunate, we think, in Hingham to have 2 elementary math specialists, and I think you know that, and I take great pride in that because I was one of the very first elementary math specialists many years ago. So we say we have 2 people, each represents 2 schools. The reality is 1.8 FTEs. I'll always remind people about that at budget time. But you have many aspects to your role, so it'd be interesting in your explain to your viewers how you kind of balance the need for coaching and demonstrating and planning lessons for teachers versus some direct service to students and all of the other stuff that you need to do in terms of ordering and budgeting and all those things. So why don't you start with Julie, and you can chime in, Blake, as well.
Yeah, I think our job is different year to year, actually day to day. I think the priorities change depending on the needs of the teachers.
And especially as we would adopt new materials, for example.
Right, depending on the needs of the students, what the curriculum is, and what's happening with that year to year. I would say the priority really on a daily basis is to see what do the teachers need right now, and what do we need to do for them, what do they need in their laps, what are the students looking for in the classroom. And beyond that, we have our yearly goals too, which is putting the budget together, teaching the classes that we teach in 4th and 5th grade, looking at the other needs that younger students need. This year, kindergarten, where we have the full day program, we're going to spend some time working with the teachers and looking at how to implement our program there on a daily basis, and really giving the Everyday Math program the integrity that it deserves at that level. We do sometimes, I think, find it challenging to meet all the needs because we're pulled in a lot of directions, but I think we have a good balance there, and like I said earlier, setting our priorities on a daily basis, kind of a yearly basis, and really trying to communicate as much as we can with the teachers, with parents, and keeping them up to date with our most current strategies and what the curriculum is requiring of students.
Good. Kate, what would you add to that?
It's funny you asked that today. I think just this morning, the multitude of things I've done since I arrived here. I met with a parent for a bit about a way that he can support his daughter at home. I was back and forth with one of the 5th grade teachers to talk about setting up some of the technology components and discovering another layer that we still needed to work on for her classroom. I met with 2 students and did some basic fact practice extensions for them. So between parents and the teachers and students, there's certainly, as Julie said, every day is different. But that's what...
Do you 2 alternate days with the 2 schools, or do you do
Yeah,
half
we
the
each
week
have
and
a
half the
little...
weekend?
I'm Monday and Tuesday at Plymouth River and Wednesday and Thursday at Foster. But Julie operates on
Yeah,
that.
I'm every other day, but I mean, even with that being said, tomorrow is really my scheduled day at South, but I have a teacher that really needs help with technology, so I'm meeting at East, so I'm going to meet with her in the morning, and then, so I think we really try to meet the needs of teachers, and when they're available, we try to make ourselves available for them too.
So we had some training this summer, the end of the summer, for grades 3 to 5, and it was voluntary, but I hear we had a lot of people come. So what was the goal of that training, and how did teachers receive it, and where are we going with that program?
So the teachers in 3rd through 5th grade received the new Everyday Math Edition 4 materials this year, and we always like to get it into their hands certainly before September when school starts. So we were fortunate that they came in midsummer, and the teachers, like you said, quite a few of them were able to attend, and they receive a box of materials with their teacher guides, the student journals, and we had one of the representatives, a long-time Everyday Math representative, come and give an overview on that. And I think the teachers really appreciate that time, even if it was only a few hours, to open that box up and see what's in there. There were several different small changes to the daily lessons. Each one has 3 differentiation options this year, so we were able to show them where each of those pieces are. In addition, there's been some changes to the assessments. Some have a cumulative assessment. The even-numbered units, the odd-numbered units have open response problem-solving assessment piece. As Dave had mentioned, the 2-day problem-solving lessons where they do the problem the first day, and then there's a re-engagement opportunity the second day. So sort of these different little adjustments and modifications in the new program. It was a nice chance to have them just some time together, and with a person from Everyday Math be able to show them what each of those were. So when they took the box back to their classrooms, they were a little bit more familiar with it.
So now that they're into that, are they thinking that was a helpful thing to do? And,
Yes, I think, you know, a couple things. I think it speaks to the devotion that the teachers have to teaching and learning the program, that, you know, they came in before school started, and they were really, I think, most excited to see that although they liked the program before, there were some areas that they thought could use a little bit of support or maybe a tweak here and there, and the authors of the program really listened to that feedback from teachers and staff and made those changes, so that they were thrilled to see those areas were indeed changed. And they've just finished Unit 1, or getting close to the end of Unit 2 now, so they've had a little time to see what the program is doing. So far, so good. They're happy with the assessments. They're really happy with that additional open response component, and how the problem solving is day to day. It's not an isolated activity, and it's really teaching the kids how to communicate better and be more flexible thinkers with numbers, and so far they're thrilled.
Great.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned technology a few minutes ago, so you folks have a nice website. Tell us about some of the things that are available, not just on the website, but in terms of the program itself. Interactive things that teachers can do using their smart boards.
Yeah, there are so many. I think if you start right at the classroom level, every lesson is available, the teacher's guide in digital form, so they can access it at home if they'd like, or in school as well. And there are digital manipulatives on that website. The lesson comes up each day with all the parts of the lesson. The teachers will use their smart boards to introduce, bring the math message up, and have that part of the discussion with the children. They can slide a box across on their smart board, and there's the answer to the problems that they've been working on. It allows the kids to come up and record and show their thinking on the smart boards as well. So that's one piece. This one also has, this edition has a home component. So all the kids have a login and password that they can go home, and the lesson the teachers have been working on that day pops right up. So their homework assignment is there. There are tutorial videos that students and parents can watch if they're not familiar with a particular strategy. So that's great. It also has some digital assessment tools, so teachers can record the results of assessments and get profiles of progress on individual students, or take a look at their whole class and see how they're doing, across the board on particular concepts and topics.
I'm intrigued that the parents can see the whole lesson, because any comments that I get, and not a lot get to my level, but anyway, they often are about, I don't know what the lesson was, and so
Right,
they
no, it's all
actually can,
there.
Yeah, can see.
Yeah.
That's a great.
And all the games are available, all the everyday math games. They can click on a link there, and it will take them to the website with all the games, and they can access all the grade levels. And
Do you have any sense of how many of the youngsters actually log in?
Well, we have almost all third, fourth, and fifth grade classrooms of students already logged in now. And third, fourth, and fifth was the priority right now, because they're
Yes,
newest
right,
to the
yeah.
program. And then we're going back to the first and second graders and working on getting them all enrolled. And we can't see who goes on at home, but the teachers
Okay.
have a nice system of sending it home for homework and communicating with parents to see how it's going. I actually just had one of the neat things. We have two new students, well, several new students, but two of them are coming from a Boston district. And so the parents called, and they're concerned because their students seem to be a little bit behind from where they're coming from. So we were able to give them their online login. Parents could go in, look at the lesson. They've watched the tutorials, and they've already
terrific.
given us some great feedback that it's been really helpful for them
that's
to
great.
keep up with what the teacher's doing at home too.
So, go
I
ahead.
was just also going to say, you'd mentioned the website has 3 components to it as well. There's an area for the students where they can go and just access some other fun math games that give them good practice, or there's a parent link there as well, and that takes them to a lot of really helpful parent resources from the University of Chicago, the developers of Everyday Math, and just some of the information that we provide about our program in Hingham. So that's a nice place to
Yeah,
visit
that's
for the
terrific.
kids as well as the parents to get additional information.
All right. So the focus right now is on grades 3 through 5. However, whatever happens there has some spillover effect. So you mentioned some of the motivation for going to the 4th edition being some gaps in ordering things, and how that impacted teaching at that level. But what is this going to bring as we look forward to the middle school?
I think there's an interesting, trickle-up effect, as they would say. And Blake and Julie have actually met with our 6th grade teachers last year a few times to help coordinate the program and sort of the overlap between the two. And our 6th grade teachers are actually in the midst of piloting a new textbook where they are trying to put in some more problem solving and some more thinking type issues that are similar to what we're seeing coming from the Everyday Math program. One of the things we find is that, and the most important thing I think coming out of this Everyday Math program, is that we as a district have had the ability to really teach it well throughout all of our elementary schools. And the teachers get the training they need, so they actually teach it appropriately. It's not one teacher going off and doing their own thing. And so by the time our students get to 6th grade, they really come in with a very similar base of knowledge. And it doesn't mean that some students don't achieve higher than others. That's not the case. We have students in all sorts of different ability levels, but we don't level in 6th grade.
Right.
And so there needs to be at least a common understanding of what all the students have been exposed to, so that we can appropriately push the students, and we can identify weaknesses in 6th grade right away, because we say, oh, these kids are supposed to have known this, they don't know it, and we can see kids who excel right away. And it allows us really to sort of move the program forward, because in 7th grade we do begin to level, and a lot of that comes there's a speed and acuity piece, but there's also a problem solving piece, and students need to be able to think and apply. And I think what's nice about the Everyday Math program is that students are being asked to think and apply their skills from a very early age. So it's giving those kids an opportunity to really succeed in the later grades.
Great. So I do hear chatter sometimes about the elementary math program, and often it's around the fact that why don't they teach math the way they did when I was in school? You know, we've all been students, and we know how we learn something, and this seems to be totally different. And so, so I'd be interested in what you perceive are the biggest concerns that you hear, and how we can do more, although I think we are doing a lot in terms of providing references for parents who want to find out more. But, well, what are the common concerns you have about the everyday math in particular?
I actually don't have concerns with the program myself.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, no program is perfect, but I agree with what you say, and I think especially now with social media, that just, you know, parents' viewpoints can explode. And I think one of the misconceptions that we hear is parents concerned with, they say, Common Core math.
Yeah.
And it's really not Common Core math. We use a program that teaches the standards. So I think it's really the standards and the level, the high expectations and the level of difficulty that parents may be concerned with, not necessarily the program. But you know, what we need to do as educators is keep the communication open and really teach the parents how to do the math. Because I've stepped in those shoes before, and I've thought, okay, if I wasn't a math specialist or a math teacher in a former life, and I saw this coming home from my children, I would agree with those parents, and I can really understand where they're coming from. But once I think they know the program and they understand what's behind it, and that there's so much depth and there's so much rigor in the way that kids think these days, and the way that they're able to communicate and figure out tax in a restaurant without their iPhone or their calculator. I mean, that's what it's teaching them. It's really teaching life skills, and not just computation like we learned. And I think the way we can do that is hold parent workshops, and just give the parents all the resources that they need, and almost train the parents like we train the teachers, so they can help support their kids.
And I think to add to that, there's definitely an understanding piece that the students are able to demonstrate, that they can show how they have learned something multiple ways. And they still learn the traditional algorithms, and a lot of times they actually learn those when they transition to the middle school. And I think what's curious is, you know, if I was going to add 23 and 87 in my head, I'd think of it as a 20 and an 80, and a 3 and a 7, right? But and I sort of developed that idea along the way, you know. And maybe some teacher told me that, I don't know. But our young students are being trained to think of that, and I think that is very daunting for parents, because the student comes home and says, "No, this is a 20, this is a 3. I put it here, I put it there," and a parent goes, "Wait, no, you got to have this in line, and you got to come down the column." But the everyday math program, we're really teaching kids understanding, to get an idea of the base 10 system and what those numbers mean. And I think going forward, that really gives them a lot of strength to develop.
Sometimes
further.
I think parents are thinking of a different goal, the goal of how to get the answer, and we're thinking of the goal of how to think.
Absolutely.
So,
And the
anything else on that? Blake, did you, or do you want to add more?
Well, I was going to say, you know, the program also considers the developmental ability of students. And so when we have youngsters coming in, like Dave said, we're teaching them concrete methods, and we're teaching them the understanding behind these methods. And certainly as they grow up and they get older and they enter middle school, we want them to be efficient at that point and use the traditional methods, and we want them to go out into life and do things quickly, and they will. But when they're young and they're learning and they're using hands-on manipulatives and different ways to think about numbers, that's going to help them be successful with, you know, when they go into algebra and in higher level math.
Okay. So what would be the best advice we can give to parents whose children are struggling with homework? Because that's often something we hear about, not just in math, but in every subject. You know, I want to help my child, but you're doing it a different way. And how can they best help in terms of homework?
I think one thing is certainly listen to what your child is saying. As Dave was mentioning, these different strategies, they may be very different from what the parents learned when they were in school, but really listening to the students and trying to help them work through the strategy that they're working on. Again, I would go back to some of those resources that are available. If you log on to the Everyday Math student portal, you'll get the video links that explain some of these strategies. Also the website Hingham Public Schools Elementary Math website has some nice links. But, I think being flexible and a good listener certainly are going to be helpful instead of trying to teach it my way. And the way I learned is not necessarily just the right way. And again, if there are any questions, certainly come to any of us. We're happy to help parents with more strategies to feel successful at home.
Right. Kind of a more global topic. Despite our best efforts, there are youngsters who do struggle with math, and as they do with many other subjects. And we've, in the last several years, done a lot more targeted instruction in literacy and RTI, as we call it in some buildings. And we've been able to provide more targeted instruction, particularly at that level of struggling people. We don't do as much in math because we don't have the same resources. And so where do you think the need is greatest in terms of providing more support for those youngsters who may not have an IEP, they may not have a special need, but nevertheless struggle?
I can kind of give an overview, but I think Julie and Blake can probably speak more specifically to grade levels. I recognize the fact that it's the same thing you said, that we don't have the same ability to address needs in the way the reading program does. My concerns come when I speak to the elementary principals, and in our conversations, we are constantly concerned about trying to reach everybody. And that's not just our most struggling learners, but also if we can extend for our higher level learning students as well. But right now, I know that we are concerned that there's a need for more targeted instruction for students who need to get to just being on the level.
Yeah.
And we're focusing on it. It's a budget constraint.
It was a budget concern last year.
And it will be
we were
this
able
year.
to get that help, but I'm sure
it comes into that balance where, we're, as you opened up and said, we're very fortunate to have 1.8 math specialists, and it would be ideal to have a math specialist in every building, but is it realistic at this moment in time? Probably not. So, but trying to find a way to then meet those needs and reach those needs is important, and I think you guys can probably point specifically to.
Are there particular grade levels, or is it just every grade level we need?
I think every grade level could use some extra support. Right now, we focus most on first and second grade, and we have a team of tutors and paras that help with that. But I think the bottom line, it goes back to just needing more bodies, physically having people in the building that are qualified to provide that intensive instruction.
And of course, by the time you get to grades 4 and 5, the gap is even bigger, and so in many ways,
the targeted in the early
maybe.
grades.
More, and parents have a big concern as youngsters move from grade 5 to grade 6 about being on target. So, okay. And at the other end of the spectrum, you've mentioned some things that are available on the website, and you've mentioned the fact that there is a leveled instruction even within the materials, but what else do we offer? And what can we say to parents really about? I'll tell you what I've always said about that, and that is, it's great if we can offer things like Math Plus or some sort of a pull-out once in a while, but to me, if a child thinks differently, can process more rapidly, is a good problem solver, simply pulling that child out of the class once every 6 days and providing some, age-relevant activities is not enough. Those are kids that we need to serve every day, just as we look to serve the greater population and the struggling learners. So what should I say to parents? Should I continue to say that? What should I say to parents?
Yeah, well, and I think we're doing that now, as I mentioned, the 3 differentiated levels built into every math lesson. There's an extension, so there's always something available, whether it's a modification to a game or something that an activity or problem-solving situation that takes the content not further into another grade level, but deeper, getting into those practices, and are the children able to analyze what's happening and apply it to yet another situation. So there are opportunities built right in. And I also think a lot of credit to the teachers are really working hard to implement a workshop model in mathematics. So what we were sort of used to with math instruction is the teacher gave the model lesson at the beginning, and we did a few together, and then we were set off to practice and do the 30 problems in the textbook. But if you're in a classroom now, you're going to see maybe a teacher sitting with a small group of children who need an extension, and they may have already completed the journal page, and the teacher is now giving them something to work on that extends that thought, while there are other students working maybe even on some computers or iPads working on some basic fact practice, or another paraeducator or someone working with a small group of students to help them complete their
And the fact that all those
job, so
resources are now in one thing for the teacher to utilize, will encourage and enhance that kind of.
And that's something we're doing a lot of with our work with teachers, is going in and helping out with model lessons and setting up opportunities where they can go observe colleagues who have been using different, variations of this workshop model. So it's very exciting to see.
And of course, we have full-day kindergarten for the first time. And prior to this year, Hingham Kindergarten was 2 hours and 35 minutes a day. I always point out that's not even half
Not
the
even,
day. And so about an hour and a half of that was spent on literacy, and everything else kind of got short shrift. So now we have a full day. We have a 6-hour and 10-minute day. We did say to parents as we're going in that direction, that's not because we're going to pile on twice as much content, but we're going to be able to teach in more age-appropriate ways. We're also going to be able to pay more attention to problem solving, more attention to learning all of the subject areas in context than we were before. So in math in particular, what are your thoughts about kindergarten?
Well, we're really excited, and I think we're going to see these rewards in the next couple years. We're really looking forward to seeing the current group of kindergartners move up to grades 1 and so forth, because we really feel like they're going to come very well equipped with their math background and math knowledge.
Right.
We worked with the teachers over the summer on this new day and the new schedule for them, so they were given some pacing, so they know just how to get through each lesson now. They have that time that they can really commit to the program on a daily basis. And so they feel really comfortable, and they feel really good about being able to use the program really for the first time the way it's intended to be used.
Right.
So that'll
That's
be
good feedback. Tomorrow I'm meeting for the first time this year with our kindergarten community.
Yeah,
full-day kindergarten
it's
committee. So
exciting
I'm
for
very
sure,
excited.
yeah.
Did you have anything more?
I think Julie certainly covered it, but just at that age, the kids just need the time to explore with the materials and really process the lessons and activities, and not feel like it's a quick, hurry, next station. It just
Exactly.
felt so rushed for them, and they certainly got the content, but in a shorter, quicker fashion and delivery. So this just really is a much better fit for where the kids are at that age for kindergarten, and the teachers are thrilled to have the time and
Right.
and really feel comfortable teaching the
I was going to
material.
ask Dave about the budget, because we're in the middle of the period of time when the principals and directors submit their budgets to us for first blush. But so I kind of understand there'll be something there about the need for the targeted instruction. That's something I would have put there anyway. Are there other things that?
I think the biggest piece, again, goes back to sort of that original question about the frameworks. And I call them new frameworks, but 2011 now.
It's not new anymore.
It's not new, but that second end of the frameworks where we're really now trying to focus on how teachers teach and framing lessons differently and looking at authentic assessments and not just always giving tests and quizzes to check student understanding, but to create projects that are interesting, unique, may not have this cute answer at the end, and the student has to really explain how they got their answer and why their math was valid in at least getting to where they got.
Right.
And so from my perspective, that's the teachers need to be trained to do that. I don't think we can necessarily just ask teachers, I guess
Exactly.
you got to change the way you teach, and you've taught great for 20 years and we think you've done a good job, but now we think you have to teach differently. So we have to spend some time really working on professional development.
Okay.
And the fortunate part is we have teachers who are interested, who want to make those changes and are invested in making the changes.
Good.
They just need to know how. And so I think budget, the way that fits back into the budget is I think over the next few years there's going to be some professional development that we're going to have to try and find that's specifically focused on the math department, and whether it's time, money, or They're one and the same.
And on a broader level, we're looking this year as one of our goals at the high school in terms of technology, and it may
Yes.
be that there are some things that come up there that as the year goes on, we may be saying, we need to look at.
Well, and I was
whatever.
writing my actual technology piece in my budget this morning, because that is part of the frameworks as well, that we're supposed to
Exactly.
be using technology appropriately. And so for most of our students, that's been the TI-84 calculators.
Right.
We've been very lucky that we've been able to, many students have them. We have enough calculators that are owned by the school that we can make sure that all students who
Have access.
to have access to them. But it's not just using the calculators. There are other technologies that we can start bringing into the classroom that we need to work on. And one of the interesting things that I'm looking at is bringing that you can now use transponder systems with the calculators. Students can share work. You can download projects to the calculators. There's, you can put a picture on the calculator, and the students have to fit a curve to match the picture. So it becomes a little bit more real-world applications again, where
And
students can work with it.
interactive
Right.
as well.
Exactly.
Right, great. So we're coming near the end here, but I always like to ask my guests whether there's something that you absolutely want for the world, or at least the world near Hingham, to know that I haven't asked you about. So I'll ask you each, did we miss something that we need to share?
Want me to start?
Honestly, I'm not sure if we did. I'm
Okay.
feeling good. We're off to a great start to the school year. More than anything, I'm thrilled with the effort that the teachers are putting in. We've already begun some work on reframing lessons and thinking about teaching math a little bit differently, and I'm appreciative of the positive responses
Great.
I've got from the staff so far. I would focus on that.
One of the things, Blake and I spend some time in other districts year to year, and we speak to them and we learn about what they're doing, and we compare notes, and I feel like we always come away feeling really great, even more great about what we're doing in Hingham, and feel like we're really on top of things, we're cutting edge, we implement things sooner, and even more important is the training that we give our teachers, because so many districts do use the same programs, and they've actually used Hingham as a model district before, because when we first implemented our program, we didn't stop with the professional development after year one. We continue it every single year. So if we have new teachers, we train them, and I think that's why we've been so successful, and the kids have been so successful with learning mathematics. So it's a good feeling to know that we do a great job with that, and that it's validated by the people that are surrounding
And
us.
it's consistent across the building. So
Right.
as Dave mentioned, when kids enter the middle school, they've all had the same exposure.
Right. Yeah.
So, Blake, what else do we miss?
I think that something that's important that Dave spoke to earlier are the practices, the new mathematical practices. Not new, but that's what they're called now, and another term, sort of the habits of mind. It's very exciting to be able to teach that to the students, perseverance and problem solving and constructing a viable argument and tending to precision. I think some of those things are very important, and likewise for the teachers to understand what those are, and just the
Sometimes
way
we assume things like that.
Right. It's I was doing a lesson recently, and it was just so exciting to see the kids showing those habits and really, it's just.
And I should mention that while we've all been talking, there have been some video clips that have been provided by all of you that they're playing in the background for our folks to see what we're talking about the classroom lab kind of setting and that sort of thing. So I want to thank you all for being here
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.
I think it was a good discussion, a topic close to my heart. As you know, so. And I want to as well thank our audience of viewers and tell you that the next two episodes that we will be doing for Superintendent Spotlight focus on elementary science will be the first one, and then foreign language, but in particular elementary foreign language, especially given that this is the first year for kindergarten for Spanish. So we're very proud of that. Thank you for watching.